Hey, this is Janet Elaine Schmidt of Reprogram for Success. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend, Scott Ferguson. Now let's go and level up.
Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. It's Scott Ferguson, and we're at episode 340 with my good friend Janet Elaine Schmidt, and we are going to enter the Quantum Consciousness Accelerator. If you have kind of grown up like myself, a little bit of a lack consciousness when it comes to having what you know you can have in life, but maybe don't feel like you deserve it, then let me get you with Janet here from Reprogram for Success. And it was such a fun conversation because I relate so well to Janet, and it was just, I picked up so many knowledge nuggets, and I know that you will too. So make sure you break out your notebooks or digital note taker, because you're going to have a lot of knowledge nuggets here that she drops. And so also, if you liked the episode, please leave us a 5-star review or a thumbs up or anything. It really helps out with our affiliates and sponsors. And without further ado, here's my really good friend, Janet Elaine Schmidt from Reprogram for Success. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I got my left coaster, my beautiful Miss Janet Schmidt, who looks beautiful in the beautiful smile if you're watching Vimeo or YouTube, but she's a smarty pants too. Like, she's really into the sciences and also the holistic healing, and she's the creator of Reprogram for Success, and for over a decade has been a practical, potent quantum conscious accelerator, integrative holistic healing facilitator, and a business coach, enabling business teams and individuals to identify and remove energetic blocks or ailments caused by inherited imprints held in the subconscious for generations. She teaches you how to recognize your program imprints, blocks, or ailments, and provides you with tools to discard what no longer serves you to have a healthy, prosperous, and wealthy life. This is going to be awesome. Janet will share with us the 4 techniques she uses with clients that has a 95% success rate in reprogramming success. And Janet, thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to the Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Violet.
Violet, and you're rocking it today.
Yeah, violet's my favorite color.
I love it.
It just makes me happy. It's got a really high vibration to it.
Yeah.
And so I really love it.
And it's in your color wheel. And
it's in my color wheel.
It's still royal and regal. And
yes.
You have the mix between like kind of a red and a blue kind of to make that. And you have the fiery side and the chill side. And I feel that radiating after the 10, 12 minutes that we talked off microphone. So again, Janet, seriously, thank you for coming on. And if you don't mind, kind of like, let's get kind of the origins, because people don't probably 3, 4, 5, 6 years old say, oh, I'm going to be holistic or I'm going to be this, like what got you there?
Well, actually, when I was 4,
Wow.
when I was 4, my grandfather passed in front of me. And when he passed, I saw him with angels. I mean, I really saw him. I didn't see him the same way everybody else did. And I didn't put it together at that time. And when I was 10, I started doing laying of hands on horses out in the fields in Wyoming. And I still didn't really understand what I was doing. I was putting love into them. And so that's kind of the energy work that I was doing. And I grew up in a family that always assisted the underserved. So that was kind of my mission. I always helped the underdog in school. And then I went through the mainstream of life. And as I went through life, I was still interested, even though I was chairman of the board of a nonprofit that helped homeless women get a better education.
You're awesome.
I helped inner city hospitals raise money. So I was doing all this other work, but on the side, I became a Reiki master. I was still interested in energy healing and kind of how it worked. And through all of this, I ended up having 3 kids, and I ended up getting divorced. And when I got divorced, I ended up getting a sum of money. And with that sum of money, I could now help the underserved, right? Both nonprofit and individuals alike. And before I knew it, everybody was hanging on to me for my money. And I couldn't say no. I didn't know how to say no. And I found myself in arbitration because my financial advisor, who was with an internationally known institution, had made an investment outside the scope of the firm And now here I am in arbitration, and all I can think about is I'm going to lose this money.
Mm.
So I always say that's the quantum physics part, right? That's the energy part. You're putting it out there that you're losing this money. So you're pulling that reality to you. And I know better than that, but here I was just, and I never thought I was going to lose. Never thought that. And in the end, he was disbarred, his partner fined, the company fined. And sure enough, I won, but I only got 10% of what I lost. And so I thought this has to be more than just energy, And so I started going back into my family history, into the epigenetics part of it.
Sure.
And that's when I discovered I came from, I looked at my money, inherited money consciousness. Everybody needs to look at that. And I went back in, and sure enough, I came from 8 generations of ministers who signed up to be economically challenged, who signed up to give their last cents to the underserved, and who had no money to manage. Now, I don't want to take that away from them, because that's absolutely courageous and that's them. But I didn't sign up for that. Right. And that's imprinted in me.
Right.
And so that started my journey. I mean, I learned neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, eye movement integration, psyche, theta healing,
tapping
DNA. I don't do tapping, but I do DNA reengineering and decoding. I do a whole process. The list goes on, but I do know tapping pretty well.
Awesome. I literally today I interviewed Brad Yates, who lives in Sacramento, on his Tap with Brad. It was fantastic. I got to introduce you guys, because maybe there's a synergy there. And it's funny that you said, or interesting that you said, the inherited money consciousness. I come from the same thing, where my father worked on the line at General Motors, and it was always like, he would always say, "Oh, Scott will be okay. We can't afford that," and that luckily I had people in my life that kind of pulled me out. And then I printed money for 6-7 years. But with that, which I'm sure you can attest, because I think you mentioned that the theory of relativity happens when you have money, which means everyone's your relative, right? They come out with their hands out and stuff, and you don't have that identity, like you said, to really hold on to it. And that's something that I had struggled with for a while. Now I'm over that, and I get it, but sometimes it does pop up as rear ugly head. So thank you for being transparent about that. So do you work with people one-on-one more, or in groups?
I work mainly with people one-on-one. Even if they're in a group and I'm working with a management group, in the end, I'll take them separate by themselves.
Okay.
Because when I'm doing what I call psyche, which is the balance in the end, which brings your left cortex and your right cortex.
How do you spell that? I'm sorry to cut you off, but
it's PSYCH-K.
Got it.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. It's a technique that a lot of people are not familiar with, even though it's been around for probably 30 years. It was created by Rob Williams. And if anybody knows Dr. Bruce Lipton, he wrote The Biology of Belief, and it was a bestseller. It was about 20 years ago. And in the back of that book, he basically says the reason why he finished writing the book and the reason why he has great relationships today is because of psyche. And he goes on to say it's the fastest, quickest way to change a self-limiting belief into a self-enhancing belief. But anyway, this is just the process that
So when you're working with the people, let's just say one-on-one, then is there any part of your protocol or secret sauce, if you don't mind sharing, to help them find their blind spot that you're going to help them align and blast through it?
Well, part of it is just listening to somebody speak. So people always disclose what's going on with them, even if they think they're not. You listen to the words, you watch the mannerisms, and you can pick up. That's part of neuro-linguistic programming. You can pick it up right away. But also, I'm intuitive, so it's a process that I have there too. So I can just use that with the process. But I pretty much know. And once you start with one thing, it's like an onion. It just kind of keeps unraveling. It just the person keeps unraveling.
Right.
And somebody will come and say, "Whoa, I didn't think I was coming for that today, but I guess I am." Wow. So it's people just kind of slowly unfold.
That's beautiful.
And then you can go through the whole system and replace it with, more self-enhancing beliefs, behaviors.
Yeah, and then it becomes part of their conditioning, if you or not conditioning, what would be like it's obviously a lifestyle change, but it does level them up. So Janet, while you're working with somebody, because it's not as well known as, hey, let's give me a pill to fix this, right? So when you're working with somebody, maybe in that discovery conversation, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Oh, that's a good question. A lot of them don't ask me how I came about doing what I do. Most people don't. They just come in and they might ask me to explain the techniques that I use. And I go through that process anyway, but none of them ask me what I've gone through or how many balances I've used on myself. I call them goal balances for when you're in Psyche. I probably used 200 on myself already. I used one a couple of weeks ago on myself.
I'm curious about that. Do you do a lot of your own healing, or do you have a practitioner that you go to maybe, if you're maybe stuck on something, to work with?
It depends on what it is, but I have a really great quantum teacher in Brazil. That right now I would go to. But if it's something that, like, for instance, I had a conversation with my son, and I noticed that when I would have conversations, 50% of the time, it kind of go, we'd be kind of tug of war. And I thought, what is that? Why do I feel that way? I don't go into why he feels that way or what he's doing. I go in, and I would say that to most people. Don't look at what somebody else is doing. Even if they wronged you, don't look at that. Look at why you are in that situation, why you're responding to that.
Right.
That's deeper than just looking at the surface of this person wronged me. Why were you there? Why were you responding the way you were responding?
Right.
And so I looked at myself instead. And as a child in the family, I was abandoned. And as an adult, I had been abandoned. And so I said, oh, that's the feeling that I feel like my son might abandon me or something. And he's not. He just moved to London. That's all.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, this is silly. So I went through and I did a balance for abandonment. I went back to where it first started. I clear it out. I use other techniques. So I clear out that old belief, and I clear it out, and I replace it with safety, security, and confidence, right? And love. And then I instill it through Psyche balance too. So in essence, what I do is I clear out the old belief, and I put in a new belief, and then I double lock it down with Psyche.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. So how much responsibility do you take? And I believe the responsibility is the ability to respond. That's my thoughts on responsibility. How much responsibility do you take about any turmoil that you go through?
I take a lot of responsibility for it. It's just like even losing the money. When I tell my inherited
I wanted to
money,
ask it like that, but you brought it up. So let's go there.
Even my inherited money consciousness. Look, somebody asked me the other day, what's the difference between innocence and ignorance? I thought that was a great question. I was being interviewed for a podcast, actually, when they asked me that. And I said, well, innocence to me is when you haven't been exposed to something and all of a sudden you're in there and you don't really know anything. I said, when I was given this money, I didn't know anything. My ex-husband handled all the finances, right? I didn't come from a family of money, so I knew nothing. So, but when I was given the money, I wasn't ignorant anymore, because now I have it. So now I have a responsibility to care for it.
Right.
And so that's ignorance. I didn't go through the process.
Yeah,
so
I love that you own it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's taking ownership. And that's why I say to people, don't look at the wrongs that, if you perceive them as wrongs, I always say they're good lessons to go through, but don't perceive that. See why are you there? What was your response to it? What are your feelings? And go and sit in the feeling, because you're going to go sit in the feeling, and that's going to take you to the abandonment, or that's going to take you down the road to oh, that's why, because I never manage it. But that's not a reason for me not to get the skills to manage it now.
I love it. No excuses. I'm just a big believer, winners make adjustments, mediocre people, or if you want to use the word losers, they make excuses. I love it. I love it. So have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get in that DeLorean with Marty McFly. Let's go back the double deuce, the 22-year-old Janet. Okay. What kind of knowledge nuggets, we call them here Time to Shine today, like not to change your journey at all, really, but to maybe help you shorten the learning curve or maybe level up, maybe just a little bit quicker at 22?
To actually trust myself, to actually hold myself at a higher level. I had I didn't have very much self-esteem. So it would be to tell myself I am worthy of the very best that love and life have to offer.
Wow.
That's what I would tell her.
That's beautiful. Would she have listened?
Maybe at 22, she might have been in a space that she would have.
Love it.
At that age, she would have maybe.
Love it. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. You've just been such a caring, passionate person since you were laying hands on animals at 4 years old or 10 years old or whatever it was. It's beautiful, and it bleeds through. And a lot of times the nice people like that, they get walked on, through that. And I'm loving now that you're really even through this journey, you've stood your ground and continue to level up, and that's just so critical and so important. I love that, Janet. So how would Janet want her dash remembered, that little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date, your life date and death date on that tombstone? Hopefully it's a billion years down the road, but how do you want your dash
Thank
remembered?
you. That I had unconditional love for everyone and everything, and that I was in service to others.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I just don't see you caring so much about the legacy and more about being a good person and leveling people up. I love that.
Yeah.
You and I vibe so good. This is awesome. So what do you think people then misunderstand the most about you?
I think they think that I had a very easy life.
Okay.
They look at me because I live life with joy and in the now. So they just see that. And so they don't see, all the leveling up I took to get there and all my experiences. And I mean, I told somebody the other day that I said, I actually grew up in poverty. I said, my parents, the meat that we would eat would be what they shot. And my mom was a better shot than my dad.
Love.
And I mean, so, and she was floored. Like, what? And I said, yeah, because people just see what they, and they don't dig down deep and understand that all of us have, and that's why I say epigenetics is so important for people to understand the actual intricate programming that's passed down through our ancestors to our parents, and our parents pass it to us until we're about 8 years old. So we have all this other programming other than even how we've lived.
Right.
Yeah.
And our kids' brains are really mush until 25 years old when they're fully matured. The actual physiological is mush. And when you tell a child no 135,000 times by the time he or she's 13 years old, how do you think that's going to train them? And that's where I grew up with that. My nickname was Dummy and Stupid. And then you'll never amount, and you're gonna be working right next to me on the line at General Motors, which is fine. Me and my dad are best friends, but a lot of it was like I was proving him wrong, and that's when I really went to print that money. Look at me, and then I lost everything because I didn't have the identity for, like you said, inheriting that part. So then, what keeps you up at night?
Nothing.
You sleep good, huh?
Yes, nothing.
Good for you. Good for you.
Nothing. I learned that a long time ago that, you know what, I'm not going to solve anything by staying awake. I'm just going to be tired in the morning. So like, I just hand it over. I just go, here you go. Whether you want to call it God, the angels, whatever.
Yeah.
I just say,
There you
it's
go.
there. I know I'm going to solve it in the morning, but right now, what's it going to do for me? Nothing.
One thing I love about our conversation is, in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, he says, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, it's like, you don't sit down and cross your legs and wallow in the shit, right? You keep going and you're taking actionable steps. And I feel that through your protocol, you're putting people through the actual steps to bring them through their valleys, in this, lay down by the river where it's a lot more fun in life, So what do you feel?
That's a beautiful way to say it.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, sorry for me interjecting, but
no, you're good. You're good.
And I actually say that Psalms every day. So
do you?
In the morning, so that's a beautiful way to put it. I'll remember that. I hope I can use that.
I mean, hell, when it turns the next day at midnight, right? It's dark.
Yeah.
You got dark times before that sun rises. And luckily, I'm looking at the Atlantic Ocean right now and the sun comes up over it and it's beautiful, but it's dark before you're going to have times in life like that,
Yeah.
I love it. So what is Janet's definition of a life well lived?
Oh, to be happy and to know that you've done everything that you've wanted to do and everything that you possibly can do to live the best life ever.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
And it's a process to get there.
Yeah.
But to know that you're taking the steps to get there, it's a beautiful process.
It is. It's also beautiful when you have people that you're aligned with, like you and me and other people as well. I love that. So time to shine today. Podcast Varsity Squad. We are back. And Janet, we will connect and hook up one day and we'll sit down and enjoy a beverage. We'll probably talk 15, 20 minutes, an hour on each one of these questions. But today you got 5 seconds with no explanations and they can all be answered like that. I promise you.
Okay.
Ready to level up?
I'm ready.
Here we go. What is the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
That success is obtainable and the power was in my hands.
You've always had it. Beautiful. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Meditation.
Beautiful. So you see me walking down the street and you're like, Fergie looks like he's in his doldrums a little bit. What book might you hand me?
I believe it's called The Awareness by Neville.
Yes.
Neville.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Your most commonly used emoji when you text?
Probably the star symbol with the tail on it.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome. Nicknames growing up?
Janny. Or Pookie. Actually Pookie. I used to call myself Pookie Mitt because I couldn't say Janet Schmidt.
Love it. Awesome. Chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
I really do like checkers because they're so simple.
I know, me too. You and I are brother and sisters from different
It's just so simple.
I love it. Go-to ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
There's a sandwich named the Janny Pookie. Build that sandwich for me.
It's got avocado in it.
Ooh, yeah, got it.
Tomato.
Okay.
It doesn't have a lot of meat.
Okay.
So I'm just going to say that it has some cheese in it and it has some basil and it's on a very nice toasted bun.
Love it. I am adding some man candy to that, a little bacon, but we'll talk about that later.
I would do the bacon.
Favorite charity and organization like to give your time or money to?
Oh, I was doing it to Dream Catchers, which is for special needs or veterans to do horseback riding therapy. I treat the horses because I'm also certified in acupressure, kinesiology, and massage for equines and canines.
I told you, Squad, she is smarty. I love it. I love it. You're doing it all from a place of service and care. I love that. And this is the last question, and you can elaborate a little bit on this one, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
Oh, wow. That's not, well, definitely probably the 70s.
Okay. Gotcha. Awesome.
I mean, I remember dancing. So for me,
in the 70s, you remember dancing?
Well, I should say this. I remember watching my sister dance in front of a mirror.
Okay.
And it must have been, well, it might be 80s.
Yeah.
I have to think when the music was.
I'm 50. I just turned 50. So it's like the 80s was my thing. I graduated in 1990. So I just
Yeah.
look at the 80s and it was so like songs today have the hook from 80s songs. Like they
Yeah,
have
they
the
do.
actual, it's crazy. But then you had all the invasions in the 80s of like U2, Duran Duran, Men at Work or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you had the Big Hair, Don't Care. And, you had, rap with Beastie Boys or Run D. Like
Oh,
everything happened in that
in that,
gluttonous
that's
freaking
true.
decade.
That's
So
true.
we grew up in the best time. I'm going to tell you right now. That's awesome. So
I think my parents played 70s music awful lot.
you know what? Thank you for saying that because, my mom would have on Croce or the Eagles or whatever all the time, right?
All the time.
And so when I am actually editing a podcast, I don't do the full editing, but I build my show notes for it. I always have Croce on in the back or a 70s
funny.
music. You know what I'm saying? It's funny. Yeah. So that's great. So how can we find you, Janet?
Oh, you can find me at www.janetelaneschmidt.com. That's my website.
Spell Schmidt for us.
Oh, SCHMIDT.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. Where else are you?
I'm on Instagram, Janet Elaine Schmidt, and I'm also on LinkedIn, Janet Elaine Schmidt.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you're also on YouTube. I see you have some.
Yes, I am.
I love it. No, keep that up, man, because I watched a couple of them earlier.
Oh,
so
okay.
Just make sure you keep that up. So let's talk about the programs that you have right now with what you're offering.
Well, I do offer straight up Psyche, which is, it would just be me doing Psyche with someone and putting in the balances that they want. So if they came to me for abundance, we would go through and just do those balances. But I do offer more of an extensive one where we actually move the old belief out and we'll put in the new one. And I use all the different tools I have for the session. And then I do have a more extensive one, which would be 3 sessions, and we would just go through. But each one of those more extensive sessions, even the one where I use all the tools, those are almost 2 hours long. So it's not, so it's not just 1 hour. The Psyche is like 1 hour, but the other ones, I even use Psyche at the end. And you get about 7 or 8 balances. So we'll do adjustments. And then I do have an executive one where it's like 10 weeks. It's intensive. You have contact with me on a regular basis, and we do at least 1 or 2 sessions a week. We've counted out. Yeah.
And I know that you're offering something up for our listeners.
Oh, yes. And for the listeners, if they mention that they've listened to us today, I will give them 50% off their first session with me.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. That's so generous. And you also, for people that maybe are working through that inherited money mindset where they might have lost a little bit of it or whatnot, they really need to get there. You offer a scholarship program?
I have a scholarship program. So all they have to mention is the scholarship program and reach out and we'll work something out.
Gotcha. I love it. And you're such a big heart. I absolutely love your guts. This is awesome. So if you could do me with one last solid and leave us with one last knowledge nugget we can take with us, internalize and take action on.
Okay. Success in every area of your life. And I say this really with passion. Success in every area of your life is obtainable, but you always have to remember the power is in your hands.
Ooh,
so
beautiful.
So I would say if at a minimum, find somebody who does Psyche.
Okay. Beautiful. And I'm going to go through your stuff and learn a little bit more myself, even about the Psyche. And squad, we've got a really fun conversation with my beautiful friend Janet today. Kind of a free masterclass, if you will. She's at a young age was putting her love into things. Whether it be the animals where she was living, and she just had a mission to assist the underserved. And there's people like that are the people that I love to get aligned with. But she also knew she needed to, make a little bit of money as well. And she kind of got interested into the energy healing. She lived with, I really call your knowing, like, something's going to happen. And she really trusted that path. And she really manifested her life through points. And one thing I love about her is that she owns what she manifests. She went through a marriage, gave her 3 beautiful kids, but that didn't work out, but she still owned it. She took responsibility again, the ability to respond to what she was doing. She is a fantastic practitioner with Psych K, and that's PSYCH-K, where you change limiting beliefs and they go really into enhancing your life. That's so basic what I said. Just really let me make a warm introduction to my good friend Janet. She's somebody that asks the powerful questions. She's not a why asker. She's not going to ask judgmental questions. She's going to ask questions that's really going to help you level up the what's and the how's, those questions. And she listens with her neck. She really leans in and she really cares about getting you past the humps, the bumps, or the valleys. If you're starting to work with a practitioner or a coach, ask about their history and why they do what they do and what really was there. Like, she just gave you her why that she does. So ask anybody that you're getting into work with their why. That she also went over the differences between innocence and ignorance, which I thought was just awesome. She wants to remind you and maybe even people that are younger to trust yourself. Hold yourself at a high level. That you're worthy. Be the best at whatever you have to offer. And if you're not sure how to do it, like my good friend Leah Woodford would say, get your asking gear. Do it. Ask for the help. My friend Janet does what she does, not for legacy. She does it for the intention, not the attention. And then again, that's the people that I love to be around. She has unconditional love for everyone and everything. And everything that's including animals, anything. I can see her petting plants even, really getting into harmony with things, and success in any area of life is obtainable. But just remember, the power is in your hands. She reminded us of that. And that's what my good friend Janet does. She levels up her health. She levels up her wealth. She's humble, yet she's hungry. She's earned a varsity squad letter here at Time to Shine today. Thank you so much for coming on, Janet. Absolutely love your guts.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I love your guts too.
Thank you. Chat soon.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast, proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you're a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.